Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Scouting for Growth podcast, where we explore the frontiers of innovation and uncover hidden gems in the world of business expansion. I am your host, Sabine VdL, and today we are in for a treat as we dive into a state that is rapidly becoming the unsung hero of the FinTech revolution. Joining us is Ron Rock, Managing Director of the Financial Services sector at JobsOhio. Ron brings over 2 decades of experience in business management and economic development, coupled with a genuine passion for helping international startups plant their flags in the US market. Now, when you think FinTech hub, your mind might automatically jump to Silicon Valley or New York. But what if I told you that there is a powerful state, a powerhouse in the heartland that is giving these coastal giants a run for their money? That is right. We are talking about Ohio. Let me throw a few eye-opening stats your way. Ohio stands tall as the 4th largest financial services economy in the United States, with a staggering $52 billion GDP in this sector alone. For startups watching their bottom line, Ohio offers a game-changing cost advantage. We are talking about operating costs at just a quarter of what you would spend in New York or California. And if you are worried about talent, Ohio's got you covered with the largest financial services workforce in the United States. Some of the numbers I've read from 2021 state 255,000 strong, but I know that the numbers have increased because of our chat with Ron. But here's where it gets really interesting. Ohio isn't just about financial services or traditional finance. The state has become a launchpad for FinTech innovation, nurturing unicorns like Root Insurance, which achieve a valuation of $3.7 billion, or Branch at the post-money valuation of $4 billion. And I love the team at Branch. And the state today is attracting companies like Upstart Network to set up major operations. In our conversation today, we'll unpack why Ohio, a state that puts you within 2-hour flight of 75% of the US and Canada financial services industry, might just be the strategic move for your startup and ensuring that you can actually meet your needs. So whether you are a European founder, eyeing US expansion, an investor scouting for the next big opportunity, or simply curious about the shifting landscape of American innovation, you are in for a treat, and you're here as well for some powerful insights. Join us as Ron and I explore how Ohio is rewriting the playbook for FinTech success, offering a unique blend of regulatory support, cost efficiency, and a collaborative ecosystem that is hard to beat. Ron, welcome to Scouting for Growth. Let's dive in and discover why Ohio might just be the best kept secret in the FinTech world. Oh, I completely forgot to tell you. This podcast was recorded live at one of our biggest insurance conference here in Europe. The name is InsurTech Insight Europe 2025. Enjoy. Hi, Ron. Thank you very much for joining me on the Scouting for Growth podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So tell us a little bit more about you. What do you do every day? Where do you live?
Obviously live in Ohio, born and raised actually, so that's probably why this job ends up being a lot more fun for me, because I'm so invested in Ohio. Can't really think about living anywhere else, honestly, but Yeah, so my job at JobsOhio is the managing director of the financial services sector. I'm here at InsurTech Insights because I'm looking for companies that are ready to expand into the States. And what JobsOhio does is we support that growth through various incentives, and we want them to pick Ohio because we have a really good economy in the state.
Yeah. So when we think about, many European and international startups, they don't always think about the US as a place to go and actually expand, but more and more are looking at the United States in recent months. So tell us, from your perspective, what should founder consider first when they think about expanding in the United States?
I'd be remiss to say they should think about Ohio first, but I'm joking, but typically they're thinking about the New York and the Silicon Valley, and that's where they're going to get near the money and near the maybe the different infrastructure, different ecosystems. What people don't typically know is that Ohio has the fourth largest economy, financial services economy in the U.S. So if you're looking for partnerships, you're looking for the market, you're looking for people that'll have a conversation with you. And by the way, when you go to Ohio versus the coasts, the operating costs are going to be a lot less than they are in New York and California. So, on top of that, just the fact that you have a company like JobsOhio that could potentially support financially. So I always say on the reverse of sales, if I find a target company that I feel like I can help, I'm not asking them for money and offering my services for a fee. I'm actually looking to pay them something to incentivize them to grow in Ohio.
So what does it actually mean for a startup, from an expansion viewpoint?
I would say from an expansion point, thinking of it, they're really established in their current market. They're looking at, okay, what's next for me? It's not going to be for every company that is in this space. They might be perfectly content in their market, but the ones that I feel are the targets, I would feel that they are looking for additional revenue, different investment. They could look into the States. Maybe they have a product that they can partner with an incumbent, for instance, or a carrier. So we have 9 large carriers in the state of Ohio. We have a lot of different banks that are, if we're looking at InsurTech integration. So thinking about partnerships, thinking about investment, and then the growth comes in the form of new employees. So we can support on all kinds of fronts.
Yeah, you mentioned already revenue generation and cost, management in some ways. So when you start thinking about the cost structure made available in Ohio, so we talk about talent already a little bit, maybe lower cost of living, and real estate. How does a startup can set their path in coming to Ohio and started shaping a life there?
Especially here, if I'm thinking about a company or a founder that has a company and it's their baby, it's their, they want to take care of it. And then they're wanting to expand somewhere 5 hours away, like 5-hour time difference. They have to find the ability to build a team that's just as passionate about their company. So, what they then have to do is, do I want to uproot and go across to the U.S., or do I find a team and find that talent that can get just as behind it? So again, back to the partnerships, you find companies that are willing to have that conversation. I always kind of say that, London and Midwestern states, they have very similar mentalities where, they kind of have that, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a very amicable type of relationship. New York, for instance, is very like hard and what do you
adversarial?
Yeah, so when you think about what Ohio can bring, we're going to have that conversation. We're going to find a way to make something happen.
So talent, as we said, is very important for any companies coming into any market, and finding the right people even more important. So Ohio has graduates, right, in financial services. So how can a startup, a scale-up, get access to that?
Thinking about, so financial services, we have 60,000 plus graduates coming out of our universities every year.
60,000.
60,000. And that's across all of the state. On top of that, think about the people that are in technology tracks in the universities that haven't really thought about financial services. So I need to tell that story too, that if you're a graduate in an IT, or thinking you're going into an IT profession, that maybe it's time to think about financial services, because anymore banks are technology companies operating as a bank, and insurance companies are technology companies operating as an insurance company. And also, if you can do that type of developing or programming or coding of some sort, there's a lot of opportunity in InsurTech and FinTech, absolutely. So if you think about how do you tell that story to make sure that 60,000 plus that are in financial services, plus the amount of people in the IT jobs and band together, we've got a lot of talent that can fill a lot of jobs.
How does this specialized pipeline of tech graduates and tech talents within FinTech and insurance technology can help the companies coming into Ohio to start building their growth milestone?
Yeah, so I think if you're thinking about, again, making sure that we'll call it bench strength. You got players that are on the bench and they're ready to get in whenever they're called upon to play.
Yeah.
You have that talent that is ready to go. You have InsurTech founders that very smart individuals, way smarter than I am. So as you're thinking about the founders that need some sort of talent to be able to help their company grow and know the right way to that growth, and to be able to talk the talk within the incumbents, within the banks, they're able to do that.
So how this specialized, pipeline of talent within Ohio can help a FinTech or an InsurTech company enter the market and then start setting up their growth milestones?
What I think of an ecosystem as a few different pillars. You have to have the economy in the state, which we do. We have a large financial services economy. And then you have to have the ecosystem of players, which I think of that in terms of who are the investors. We have large companies. We also have a lot of startups that have found footing in Ohio. And then the talent in that ecosystem has to be there as well. So when we take a look at the talent that needs to fill the jobs of the future in financial services, we have to make sure that the curriculums are up to par. So how are those companies going to have that talent that comes out of there? Our curriculums are built around that, knowing that, AI, for instance, or, the low code environment, for instance, needs to be part of that innovative technology. So we're always thinking ahead on what does that technology mean for the industry.
Cool. So I know when we met before, you mentioned that you have InsurTech unicorn at branch in Ohio to establish players like JP Morgan. So how do partnership with large Ohio-based corporations like those help early-stage startup to actually succeed, test and learn and iterate and experiment around their offering more quickly?
I think kind of back to my last answer, thinking about the ecosystem of players that we have, where we're in kind of an interesting spot, and maybe talking about brands specifically, they found footing in Ohio because of basically the environment that we're in, the climate that we're in, because we're not a really large catastrophe, we don't have a lot of large catastrophe or catastrophic losses. So if you're wanting to test a product, test a new company, you got that in your favor, and that's what Branch found them to succeed. And then from there, because of the ability to get over a certain regulatory environment and getting licensed to do business in a state, and then they move on to other states, it makes it a lot easier. So it's kind of a gateway to launching on a grander scale. And I say it a lot too. Ohio is a really good test market because we're kind of a microcosm of some larger cities. So not just financial services or insurance, but companies come to Ohio because, and Columbus specifically, but They come to Ohio because they want to test a product, because it's almost, like I said, a microcosm of a larger market, and then kind of like a sandbox. You're playing on a sandbox before you launch globally.
So any examples of recent fintechs, that have moved to Ohio and actually loving it and also scaling their business there?
A couple that really come to mind, Upstart, which is they're at the forefront of innovation on loan offerings. They took a deeper look at how they offered loans to individuals and companies potentially. Lower.com is a good one too. So that's more in the fintech space. But I would say, another unicorn that we didn't really talk about was Beam Benefits.
Okay.
Recruited from a outside of the state type of scenario, and he found footing in Columbus and grew considerably. Another one that really comes to mind is Root Insurance. They've went through some growing pains, and they'll admit that. But all you have to do is take a look at their stock price and see that they're turning things around. But Root Insurance again found a great market in Ohio, grew to a certain level, and really loved the state.
That's cool. Could you walk us through how JobsOhio engage with startups, actually? From the initial conversation to actually getting them to collaborate with companies, getting loans, tax incentives to move to the States, and how you actually support them.
We're not a one-size-fits-all. We actually had programs that didn't quite fit some of the earlier stage companies, so we took a look at that and said, okay, how do we support it both formally and informally? So we have now 3 different innovation centers across the state. We have one in Cincinnati, one in Columbus, and one in Cleveland. Whether it's support in terms of giving them a location to be near other innovators, that's one thing. And then we also took a look at our incentives and said, not everything is going to fit that core program. So how do we build something that's going to support earlier stage? So we created JobsOhio Growth Capital, where we will actually put convertible debt type of support onto that company, or a straight equity investment. So we don't write our own term sheets, but we do go arm in arm with the lead investor. If it's something that we want to invest in, we actually will put some investment in there.
That's cool. Well, as you know, thriving ecosystem rely on open collaboration. So besides financial incentives, you mentioned also real estate. How does, the Ohio culture of innovation help the startup? I know you run conferences, right? You mentioned some to me. How do you make it a fertile ground for them to succeed and expand their business?
I kind of call myself, it's on my LinkedIn profile, I call myself a connector, facilitator, whatever. And I think that's kind of the core of my job. One, I have to definitely know the industry, but I'm never going to get really deep into knowing exactly what the industry is doing. So I stay in my lane. Like I said, I stay in my lane. So what I do is I make connections to the right individuals. I listen to the companies within the state. I also listen to the companies that haven't been introduced to the state yet. And I kind of give myself internal signals and say, okay, I had a conversation with somebody about this very thing, make an introduction. And like I said, are the companies that I deal with, I've created really good relationships with them. So if I, quote, pick up the phone and call them, they're answering, always open to an introduction. So that's the informal side. But on the formal side, we have an ecosystem of VCs. Actually, recently we just added a new angel investor type of arm to one of our VCs. So we're just making sure that we're taking a look at all the different layers of support that we can provide. And if it happens to be a JobsOhio provided incentive, then great. If not, it's a connection that we have.
So what are the key indicators? Think about European startups, scale-ups wanting to come to the United States. And so, you have also to scout and evaluate who is going to be credible or actually who is going to succeed if they were coming to Ohio. So what are the key indicators a European or international startup should be looking for before even thinking to come to the United States and then knocking on your door?
I'd be remiss to not give a shameless plug to. I've done something that kind of helps on many different fronts. I did a course that you can find online with Insurance Knowledge Hub. It was just a matter of giving some bite-sized learnings to a company, knowing everything from, what do I need to do from a regulatory standpoint, from setting up my business to evaluating the market. And I think if you're thinking about expanding, you really have to know your market well. And I think that's probably the item that I hit on a lot. Because again, a company could be completely content with being in their market and just grow within their current market. But if they want to expand, they really have to take a look at, okay, what is the global market? And am I a strong enough player in that market before taking a look at it? But of course, if they land on, let me explore Ohio, there's a lot of opportunity there, and that's where I'll help open the door.
Yes, superb. Yes. You have done some work with Nicole at Insurance Knowledge Hub, and I guess, if there's a resource one should go and look for before even coming to talk with you is just get to understand the state and what are they going to be the tick box criteria just before you come here. So very, very good point here. Now let's talk regulations, because you have mentioned to me in the past that Ohio's regulators are open to dialogue. And I've actually talked to the NAIC and various regulators in the United States, and they do want innovation, and they want international innovation to come to the United States as well. So in practical terms, how does the openness differ from state to state? And why does it matter for fast-moving startups to select the right states with the right regulations?
Yeah, obviously we're in a hugely regulated environment, and sometimes we get in our own way. There's different layers of that. Obviously, there's some insurtechs that don't need to worry about the regulation because they're more customer experience. They're more of the, they basically can plug and play type thing. But if you're going to get into the space that is going to be heavily regulated, like our space, the states, you got 50 different bodies within the U.S. that have different regulations. Maybe there's a lot of similarities, but there are differences, and there's differences of how eager they are to let new startups in. You've got other large corporates that like to lobby because they like their comfortability of that highly regulated environment.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it tends to keep people out. But I think that's where Ohio is a little bit different, where you do have large players, but they're also not making a ton of noise. We've got like the Root Insurance, the Branch, the Beam Benefits. They've gone through it, and they've gone through it very quickly. I've done case studies where they've touted how well Ohio has gone. And of course, I work with the Department of Insurance in Ohio, and what I do like is one of their directors there came from development. So what basically I do, they came from the state development department, and they have an eye on economic development. So it's kind of like eye-opening to say, are we in our own way, and then what can we do to get out of our own way? So they've created a kind of a roadmap to let a new company or a new startup or a new product come in, know that from day one to day whatever, here's what I'm going to face. And if they don't adhere to that, then they just raise the question. So again, back to they're willing to have that conversation. That's kind of what they've done differently.
That's superb. Ron, what do you see are the biggest potential or real growth opportunities for startup, scale-up coming into Ohio financial services scene? Maybe thinking about artificial intelligence, which everybody's talking about, maybe even climate risk, which is something we need to address following the LA wildfire.
Yeah. There's again back to where are you going to find that market? Again, we're competing with I mentioned fourth largest financial services economy against New York, California, and Texas. So if you're looking for an economy and you want to go to that saturation point, or that point where it's going to give you the most velocity to succeed and have the most conversations, have the most opportunity for partnerships and getting into larger organizations, Ohio is going to do it. We've got JP Morgan, for instance, who is a large employer in the state. Nationwide is another larger. larger organization, Progressive, which is one of the largest,
Yeah.
I think the largest insurance company in the world.
It's one of the Fortune 500, probably top 50.
Is in Cleveland. So, thinking about the opportunities, if I'm a startup and I feel like I'm looking for success in a market, I'm going to go to that saturation point. And so I would take a look at it. You're always looking from a company perspective, you're looking at logos. We would be kind of one of those logos that we would like to be.
Yeah, wonderful to hear. So I want to go back to success, because success breeds success. So could you share a nice success story? I know I love the team at Branch. I mean, I'm so mesmerized by some of the things they've done in recent years. So, let's inspire startups. We may want to arrive into Ohio, probably get into access to partnership and scale their business effectively and fast. So what are some of the examples you want to share with them?
I'd have to say, so in my sector, WorldPay, for instance, they found a great footing in Cincinnati, Ohio. They actually they have a huge presence in London as well. But they said, okay, we like this ecosystem here, and we want to maintain operations in Ohio, because we feel that Ohio could be a tech hub, not just a FinTech or an InsurTech hub, but we really feel like we can be a tech hub across many different sectors. Which the reason why I brought up in my sector is because we've all had some really good wins in a company called Anduril, which is a military and defense company that is very impressive. I'm not a specialized person in that industry, but if you wanted to look up Anduril, it's an incredible company. As well as we're wanting to be at the forefront of auto innovation.
Yes.
With Joby. Joby is a company that said we want to create air taxis in Ohio too. So then back to my sector, where Wells Fargo, who has never had a presence in Ohio, said, we feel like we're going to find our tech talent in Ohio. So they came to Columbus and said, this is where I want to be. And they created a technology hub with over 500 people that they're going to commit to, all because they knew that we had the ecosystem in play.
Fascinating. So my final question to you, Ron, when we look at advising founders of startups and scale-ups, we are there to break through and come into United States and Ohio in particular. How can they best leverage you, your team, JobsOhio, to do so?
I came into this role where I feel like, again, back to at my core, I feel like I'm a connector, a facilitator. I think that's kind of our mission. Our mission is to not just be a good state in the U.S., but we want to be the best state in the U.S. And I think our leadership has really amplified that, because we've made it part of our core values. We definitely are an economic development organization, but our mission is to make Ohio the best place for you to live, work, and live your version of the American dream. Our president says that all the time. So in terms of our mission and how everything is aligned, I feel like our leadership helps that. And knowing that I'm kind of a Ohio born and bred, like just born and raised, and don't feel like I'm going anywhere. I feel like what better organization to work for than a company that wants to better the entire state. So I think when you really get behind it and really love what you do, it just makes it easy. It helps me be authentic, I guess. So being approachable, and it's high stress. I want to create a lot of jobs every year, every month, every day. But at the same time, if I create one job, I'm doing something that's really beneficial to the state.
Well, Ron, thank you so much for joining me on Scouting for Growth.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Scouting for Growth. Please subscribe, share with friends, and leave a 5-star rating. Your rating is so valuable. I review all of them, and my team help me adapt content to meet your needs. Also, connect with me on my preferred channels. I am a B2B growth expert, so you will find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Threads, and X as well as Blue Sky. All information available below. Until next, keep scouting for growth.